So first on, Euclidean Studios team has been quietly working on an ambitious RPG title for the PC platform. It's called Nazralat: The Fallen World, and they've been working on it for a couple of years now. The first trailer was actually released not so long ago. I hope you guys have seen it. And it gripped us with its unique atmosphere, promising an amazing playing experience. So we would like to welcome their art director, Uglješa Stevanović.
Hello, everyone. I am Uglješa Stevanović. I'm the creative director and lead artist for Nazralat: The Fallen World. I would like to thank everyone for coming here tonight so we can all connect and talk and hang out. So we don't have a lot of time, so I'd better just get into it. I would just like to clarify the title that the Unreal is the independent team member, not me using it. Okay, cool. Euclidean Studios, a little bit about us. We're a studio. We formed a couple of years ago. We have some experience with like AI. Some of us have experience with AI and neural networks and machine learning. Some of us have worked on Warhammer and Games Workshop. We worked as animators, directors, and artists. And we've did some fan films for Warhammer like a couple of years, like maybe 5 years ago, and we've just kind of like slowly kind of banded together and decided to do something more, like we wanted to make our first game essentially. So 2 years ago we banded together and started working on our very first game, Nazralat: The Fallen World. So a bit about the game. The game is a dark fantasy story-driven kind of branching narrative exploration kind of game with a big focus on dialogue. Of course, it's dark fantasy. I mean, we're in Serbia, so. It's essentially, it's a very kind of like, it's a mishmash of our own inspirations. It's a mishmash of like our favorite like artists. We're kind of like trying to create a world where you get to like have meaningful and deep interactions and kind of branching stories, but it also feels kind of like a surreal experience. Like it's a very, how we call the style, surreal realism. And it's a very art-heavy game. And that's something that I wanted to talk about here. So making an art-heavy game is a big challenge in itself. Like this is not true as much as it used to be, but like choosing your own engine at the beginning of a project heavily defines the look of the project. Like even today, a lot of professionals can tell which engine it is. Like it's hard to tell, but like you can still tell if you have enough experience. But you know, engines have kind of entered into like started standardizing, and they're kind of like PBR kind of like hones them all in together. But the first choice was obviously like which engine. So that was something to consider because that's heavily going to affect our art style. So also doing a game which is like realistic but also has a very, very like surreal world. We wanted to, like when we say realistic, we wanted to make it like very very in-depth on the level of detail of the assets. Like we wanted people to kind of like feel every texture, feel every surface. So that obviously means limiting usually the scope of the game, but we wanted to kind of like, from one of our favorite painters, Zdzislaw Bekshinsky, we wanted to kind of like get those big scale environments with that level of fidelity. So performance was also something that's very costly for realism. Also, as the good folk at EB know, it requires a lot of manual labor to kind of keep everything consistent in this style. Like every asset, you can't just pull it from an art library. It's something that you actually have to handcraft to kind of fit the theme, the style, kind of like the environment needs to have some sort of coherency because it's not meant to be fully realistic. It's meant to be like an alien world. And as always, it's a battle of optimization versus visuals. We've decided to go with Unreal. obviously. First of all, because it's the best engine ever made. I mean, we all are in agreement here. It's super flexible. It's like extremely cutting edge. Like its ease of use and like the blueprint system like makes things very easy to iterate. We didn't want to build our own engine because like that's just a completely different profession altogether, arguably. It's very easy to, like, when you work in Unreal, it's very easy to, like, iterate a game for multiple platforms as well. Just, like, the support of, like, many cutting-edge features and third-party integrations, like, it's just an incredible tool to work in. So it's something that we kind of seen as fitting for our vision, like, artistic vision. And, of course, like, it's basically always at the forefront of innovation. It's like every few months, like the rendering pipeline completely changes. Like it's a completely, like you can do so much with it. We've made kind of like working on Azrael. Like we started off in Unreal 4, and a few months ago we did the somewhat painful but very, very like important switch to Unreal 5. And something that we greatly found was that the art style was very enhanced by the technical innovations, especially Nanite, which was very, very essential in kind of like in pushing that style where we wanted you to get in close. Like we have this, for example, this asset here. This is the Unreal 4 version, and this is the Unreal 5. So we wanted you to have the feeling of getting in close and seeing all that detail and those textures, but we didn't want like for them to be just normal mapped surfaces, but it was something that was required for optimization's sake. So as soon as we switched to 5, we were kind of playing around with it, and we were like, hey, this is actually looking more like a painting and less of a game. So that is sort of the style we were pushing for. So that was an amazing benefit for this kind of thing. And obviously, like, something that we got was Lumen as well, which is kind of like if you want to get super, super nice, detailed, realistic light, like especially when you're trying to do something like that's very large scale, usually you do dynamic lights, but everyone knows like dynamic lights just can never look as good as baked lights, unfortunately. But Lumen has completely changed my stance on that. Like Lumen is just amazing, and the new virtual shadow maps and something like it's something that we're heavily using in our game. So we're kind of like heavily pushing like use of Lumen. It's just so nice, especially like earlier today, what Sava talked about the use of the use of Unreal and like for filmmaking purposes as well. Like we kind of like get that cinematic feeling, but in our game shots, which is kind of like very important for our game, and it's something that we're pushing for. I mentioned like Unreal as an independent team member, and since we are like a very small studio, there's only 4 of us, everyone wears a lot of hats. So it's very important that the engine we work in also wears its own set of hats. So these are just like off the top of my head, just some things that came to mind. Like something that we love about Unreal is that it's perfect as a tool for promo artwork or trailers. Like our trailer, some of you may have seen it, it's completely done in Unreal. Like none of it was like rendered offline or anything. We just like, the only thing, those are all game assets. We only just enabled the ray tracing, and that was it. So it proved kind of like very handy for that. We didn't have to like, you know, convert models, shaders, make it kind of look consistent with the game. And a big bonus for that is that all the locations in the cinematic are actually, we're able to just seamlessly put them in the game without like worrying too much about, you know, like we kind of want to avoid the feeling of that everyone had at some point when you watch a cinematic and it looks amazing and you're like, oh yeah, but like once I play in the game, it's not going to look like that. But Unreal definitely like changes that complete story. Like that's something that you kind of like you can do now. Also, like localization support, like tools for localization are really nice. Our game is very dialogue heavy. That is something like there's a lot of tools like you can just basically swap out lines depending on the language. That would be very annoying to implement in many other engines or our own custom one. There's a lot of free learning material. So there's no onboarding, not a lot of onboarding for new members because everything is online. It's all connected. Like people learn a lot. Like here, like even today, like we're learning, getting inspired. Like stuff like cloth sim and hair, like that is all. And of course, free content such as MetaHuman and the Quixel Megascans, which is like super handy for like iteration, super handy for cinematic visuals. And unfortunately, we're out of time. I'm gonna have to wrap it up, but thank you. I hope these 5 minutes have been very informative.